All right, now we got week two, hot or not, guys that you should start in your fantasy football teams this week, or guys that you should sit on your bench. Starting at the hot side, I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers, quarterback of the Packers. Rodgers had a solid week against a much better defense than the Redskins had last week. But the biggest thing is the Redskins defense I didn't think looked all that great. The Eagles ran the ball the entire second half for the most part. I also thought Michael Vick wasn't quite as accurate as Rodgers would be. He missed a lot of open throws and could easily have put another 14 points on the board in the first half against the Redskins. So go with Rodgers if you have him, of course. Philip Rivers is a not guy. Put him on the bench. Going up against Philadelphia on the road, the offensive line isn't very good. Philadelphia's going to be a tough team to play on a short notice like the Chargers have. Chargers don't have a great defense. I would expect Philip Rivers, who did his usual a lot damage to the Chargers' cause at the end of the game when the Texans were coming back against them when he threw a pick six, to throw a couple more of those against the Eagles. So I would definitely sit him on the bench if you have him on your team. Speaking of the same game, LaShawn McCoy is my hot guy to go up against the Chargers at home. He had 180 yards last week against Washington. He should get a significant number of yards against the Chargers as well. I would think the biggest factor against McCoy this week might be they'll be so far ahead that they'll pull him out early. On the not side, you've got Trent Richardson of the Browns going up against the Ravens this week on the road. Didn't do much against the defense of the Dolphins at home last week. And Richardson, you might see the Browns go a little bit more for the pass, seeing as how Peyton Manning torched them so badly last week. But I really just don't see Trent Richardson having a great game against the Ravens after being embarrassed at home. For the hot side at wide receiver, I've got Cecil Shorts. Now, Shorts going up against Oakland. He's at home. Actually, excuse me, they're on the road against Oakland with Jacksonville. Had a real good feel for Cecil Shorts and Chad Henne last year, and I think Henne will lean heavily on Cecil Shorts this week for Jacksonville, and should be a great matchup there. On the not side, I would go with Marcus Colston against Tampa Bay. Of course, Tampa has Revis. I would expect, though, the Buccaneers to try and eat a lot of clock. The Saints will see a lot of Doug Martin all game. They'll throw a lot more passes to Martin than they did last week. Try and get him on track. Doug Martin only had 65 yards last week. And when you combine those factors, Revis not in New Orleans, then I would go and just sit Marcus Colston this week, or at least be wary that he's not going to put up wide receiver one type numbers this week. At tight end, I would go with Tony Gonzalez on the hot side against St. Louis at home. The Falcons are banged up. Roddy White's dinged up a bit, and Julio Jones is dinged up as well. I would look for Tony Gonzalez to find some room against the Rams defense, and for Matt Ryan to really look for him. I think the Falcons will probably run the ball with Steven Jackson a lot more as well, but Gonzalez will catch probably 10, 12 passes, and might have a touchdown or two as well. And on the not side, I would go with Vernon Davis on the bench this week against Seattle on the road. The Seahawks have a great cover defense, great defense entirely, and I would expect them to really make Colin Kaepernick throw to almost anyone else outside of Vernon Davis. And we'll have to see if Harbaugh can counteract that on the 49er side. But Vernon Davis is the man I would sit on my bench for week two.